Let's talk about taste. We're going to talk about smell and then also touch um, in this screencast. So, first of all, about taste. No secret, taste. The receptors are the taste buds on the tongue. Years ago, they actually kind of had what they thought they mapped out the tongue, and they believed that you had certain taste buds in certain areas. But for the most part now, I don't think that's necessarily uh, exactly as we used to think. But basically, we always thought you had four basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. But in the last 15, 20 years, they actually came up with a new taste, and so now we talk about the five basic taste. Now, the fifth one is umami. Okay, that's what it sounds like, is umami, but it's kind of a meaty, cheesy taste. And if you think of a lot of the pizza and stuff like that that you tend to eat, it has a lot of that umami taste to it. Now, another thing that has to do that definitely influences our taste is the sense of smell. Smell and taste go very close together in this fact. Now, technically, the receptors for smell are way up in the upper part of the nose, the olfactory cells, way up in the upper part. So, therefore, a lot of times, if somebody has a cold, or if you have allergies, things like that, and your head's all clogged up, not only will it affect your sense of smell, but it also affects your sense of taste. Um, a lot of times people can do experiments, little experiments with like jelly beans and things like that, where if a person's blindfolded and they can't see the color of the food they're eating, like the jelly bean, if they hold their nose and taste the jelly bean and try and figure out what it is, most people can't do it. They have no idea, not without that sense of smell as well. So it's kind of depressing to have like a cold or the flu or something like that on your birthday, because not only do you get like a special birthday meal, but then the bad thing is you can't taste it in most cases. Now, human beings have about 10 to 20 million olfactory cells, but it's not the same for everybody. Bloodhounds have about 200 million. That's why their sense of smell is so much better and more intense than ours, than human beings. You also notice on this slide that we have no universal list of basic smells. We never have developed any. There's a variety of smells. We talk about that kind of stuff, but there's no universally accepted list as such. Smells often stir up old memories. It's kind of interesting here because all of the other senses, our eyes, our ears, the sense of touch, and so forth, all of the other senses, the information goes in through whichever sense, for example, the eyes or the ears, and it goes to the brain, and it goes through a certain area of the brain called the thalamus. And then the thalamus kind of redirects the signal to various parts of the brain. The sense of smell is the only sense where the information comes in and doesn't follow that path. The sense of smell actually gets sent through the middle part of the brain, and it's right next to what's called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is part of the brain that helps to process new memories. And so it's kind of interesting that sometimes you will experience a certain smell and it brings up certain memories that you've had in the past. So let's take a look at the sense of touch. There's several things that we'll look at here. Basically, four skin sensations: pressure, warmth, cold, and pain. Now, different areas of the body are much more sensitive than other areas of the body as far as these things. So, There's certain areas, for example, your hands and your arms and things like that, different parts of the body where basically your ability to kind of distinguish these things are not nearly as good as certain other parts of the body. Kinesthetic sense. This is our sense of kind of body position and movement. When you wake up in the morning and you haven't really opened your eyes yet, you're just getting awake, you don't have to look underneath the covers to, let's pause. Okay, I paused it there because you didn't have to hear my grandfather clock there. But as I was saying, if you wake up in the morning before you've opened your eyes and all that, you don't have to look under the covers to see what position that your body's in. You can already sense it. You know that. That's your kinesthetic sense. Being able to do things, for example, athletically, whether you're into gymnastics or tennis or baseball or basketball or whatever the sport may be, you have certain abilities. You're much more in tune or focused with how your body moves and your ability to control the different movements that your body makes. Nolan Ryan was, he's an older guy now, but for about 25 years he was one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. And he literally had a long career, 20-some years. It was close to 25 years. And he could throw, at one point in his career, he could throw a baseball 100 miles an hour. So this guy was good. But years ago, when I used to coach baseball, I actually was at a clinic one time and met Nolan Ryan's pitching coach. And Nolan Ryan's pitching coach was saying that Nolan Ryan had the best kinesthetic sense of anybody he had ever worked with. For example, and I know this from experience, you can try and teach someone to make a change in their body movements, whether it be in pitching or hitting or shooting free throws or whatever. But a lot of times athletes, some athletes are better than others at making those changes. Sometimes you can work with somebody for, day after day after day, and it just seems like they just can't physically make the change that you want them to make. Nolan Ryan, he said, was instantaneous. He said Nolan Ryan could step off a mound, he could talk to him and say, okay, I want you to maybe, get your elbow up just a fraction higher, put a little bit more pressure on this particular finger or that finger, or hold the baseball just a tiny bit differently, and maybe the slot that you throw the ball from, that angle, change it from like 45 degrees to about 50 degrees, whatever the case might be. And he said Nolan Ryan could think through that. He'd kind of step back and kind of close his eyes and just kind of visualize that. And he could step right up on the mound and immediately from that first pitch make the changes that they were asking him to make. And people like that, that's very rare. Most people can't do it that well, that quick. Now, our sense of motion and stuff comes from the vestibular sacs in the inner ear. Our ability to understand, and kind of our vertical movement and forward, backward, things like that. A lot of that sense of balance and stuff comes from the vestibular sacs in the inner ear. And when those things get out of whack, if something's happened, if we're sick, or if we have an infection or something, or we get on, like at a carnival, we get on one of those things that spin you around like crazy, you get off of those things, and the fluid in the inner ear can be out of whack, and that's what gives us the sense of motion sickness. So, for some people, it could be literally driving in a car and visualizing, the things passing you in a car. For me, it's anything going around in circles. I can do roller coasters all day long. that doesn't bother me a bit. But if you put me on a little kid's ride that goes around in circles, I'm going to get off and I'm going to puke somewhere. Not a good feeling. So, but that's the motion sense. And the last thing we'll look at here is pain. And it's kind of interesting because pain, we're going to talk about it as a good thing. Nobody likes to have pain. We don't like to experience it. But in one aspect, pain is a good thing because it does put restrictions. It puts guidelines on our behavior. There are people, occasionally, who are born without pain receptors, without being able to sense pain in their body. That's not good. Little kids who can put their hand on a hot stove, and they don't even realize it. They don't experience the pain, and their hand can literally be burning away. They don't know it. Every now and then you'll hear about people like this, and it's a very dangerous thing. A little kid could go and play on a playground and break a leg and not even know it. So now for most of us, when we do experience pain, especially intense pain, we have a release of what's called endorphins. Endorphins are kind of a hormone that gets released in the body, and the brain, it impacts the brain tremendously, taking away and reducing the pain that we experience, and it gives us an overall calming effect. It's kind of like our body's natural version of morphine. If any of you have ever had morphine, it's a whale of a painkiller. And that's exactly what endorphins do. Is for a time period, if we have a significant injury, that they take over and they relax us and kind of take that pain away. Now, unfortunately, they don't last forever, so sooner or later we do get that pain. Now, phantom limb, that refers to the idea of somebody who's lost an arm or a leg or something of that nature, a finger or toe. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of times the brain doesn't register that. And so there are cases, a lot of cases, where let's say that a person lost, their left arm from the elbow down, but all of a sudden they experience major pain in their left wrist. Their left wrist isn't there anymore. They don't have it, but yet we're still, that person's still experiencing pain from it. And people, when this happens, they usually have to go through a therapeutic process. And sometimes it's kind of like reprogramming the brain to understand that hand is not there, or that wrist is not there. So kind of an interesting thing. All right, let's stop at that point.